This is the Inlet Wetlands Commission meeting for Town of Monroe. It is March 10th, 2021, and the time is 7:04 p.m. I'll take a roll call of members of the commission and staff present during tonight's remote meeting. Please answer here at present, starting myself, Keith Romano, Lois Spence, Vice Chair and Secretary. Jim Stewart, who's away from us. Clark Gingras.
Here.
Ross Mastroco.
Here.
BJ Hall.
Here.
Denise Halstead, Inland Wetlands Agent.
Here.
Donna Szynski, our Office Manager.
Here.
And Sarah Stroud, Recording Secretary.
Here.
Before we start, I'll read our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. Inland Wetlands Mission Statement. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetlands Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. Meeting procedure. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearings is to have an applicant make a presentation to the commission, during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. Due to remote meeting status, I'd like to ask the applicant to keep presentations as concise as possible. The commission will then review town, staff, and other independent comments. The meeting will then be open for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or commission. After any and all comments pro and opposition or of a general nature are made, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. Again, due to remote meeting status, please keep comments or questions direct and at a time limit of 3 minutes. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally in the best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new material is entered in as evidence or testimony during the response. Please keep all comments pro and con specific to inland wetlands related matters. Other applications that do not involve a public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comments allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I have none.
Great.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We have a permitted use as of right, IPU 2021-02 to be added.
Okay. All right. This is the general public participation part of the meeting. Is there anybody with us tonight that would like to speak to the commission in any type of subject whatsoever? Doesn't look like it. I know all these names. All right. Moving on to regulated activities, subdivision report, commissions to P and Z, none. Regular meetings, none. Public hearings, none. Enforcement, NOB discussion, nothing. Remediation submissions, IWR 2020-02, 224 Guinea Road. Remediation plan to remove fill and plant the wetland area.
I asked Dave to be on just in case. I did not get anything back from the attorney today, so we're in the same position as we were the last time.
All right.
So I was hoping that I would have something and I would have been able to get it to Dave, but that did not happen.
Denise.
Yes. Where are you?
Yeah, I've got, where are we time wise? Because even when we do get something back from the town attorney, I'm going to have to get it to my clients and their attorney's going to have to review it. Do we need to get an extension in?
You do not, because it's a remediation application, so it does not follow the statutory timelines of a regular application. So we have as much time as we need.
Okay. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to make sure.
All right.
That's why I've been trying to keep you in the loop as to,
Yeah.
you know, when we get something back too. So
I appreciate it. Thank you. Everybody
Thanks,
everybody have a good short evening.
Thank you.
thanks, Dave.
All right. Now we're at application hearing determinations, none. Other bond release reduction reports, none. 10, time extension, IWC 2015-19, 64 Cambridge Drive, section 4, request for 5-year extension.
I put you in the right spot, Kevin, so.
Wait, can I address the commission, or do you need to
No,
open this up, Keith, or?
Go ahead.
Okay.
State your name and go ahead.
Of course. So, good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Solely Engineering offices located here in Monroe at 501 Main Street. I know there was some confusion about this extension request, and I can certainly shed a lot of light on it. I don't know if you could make me a presenter. I could just share my screen and kind of give everyone an overview of what this application actually was, and talk about where it was located and what it achieved, to kind of shed some light on the whole thing.
Okay.
So while Donna works that out, this was an application that was submitted in response to a notice of potential violation back in 2014, and it was approved by the Wetlands Commission in 2015. So this was the re-subdivision of Section 4. Way back when this project was approved previously, at one point there was a subdivision road which came in and through 64 Cambridge Drive and 4 Independence. And at the time of this application, the right-of-way for Cambridge Drive actually extended all the way into, let me change this color, extended further into Cambridge Drive like this. And so when we came in for this re-subdivision, what we did was we essentially modified that subdivision line and created a cul-de-sac at the end of Cambridge. So this was a cul-de-sac right in front of Axel Plastics, and it kind of pulled that right-of-way, that town right-of-way, out of 64 Cambridge and established a cul-de-sac at the end. So as part of this, there was, these are all the approved final plans that were signed off and stamped off by both Wetlands and Planning and Zoning. Essentially it was establishing the new subdivision limit, establishing a cul-de-sac to be constructed, and then a detention basin associated with that cul-de-sac immediately adjacent to it before you entered into 64 Cambridge Drive. So there was plan and profile approved, the limits of the roadway, the detention basin, and then a driveway coming in, and it kind of captured some of that driveway. But the real purpose was to reestablish that property line and reestablish that right-of-way line and all the work associated with it. And part of that approval actually included wetland plantings and enhancements throughout the basin area and the upland area, and it even had some wetland upland enhancement further inside the property. So after the property changed hands, there was the previous permits that were issued were transferred to the new owner. They actually came in and had a second pre-construction meeting because there was a new ownership. So they wanted to meet with staff and go through all of this work and make sure it was going to get done in the right way. And then we started the process with the commission for the bigger picture. And basically because we were optimistic that the last application for this property was going to get approved where all of the work could start together, this wasn't progressed in earnest because we were in the middle of a bigger discussion. But so this is a subdivision. This isn't a normal application. This is a subdivision application that was approved by Wetlands and it was approved by Planning and Zoning. The record subdivision Mylars were filed on the land records. Those bonds associated with those were established and are still being held by the town of Monroe. So, in some ways, if the commission, this and Planning and Zoning chose not to extend these permits, the town would be on the hook to call those bonds and actually perform this work. We're simply requesting an extension of those permits so that we can continue to be the entity that actually performs this work, or the applicant, the owner is the entity that performs the work. And none of the area surrounding the locus of the subdivision had any kind of impact from a violation standpoint. As we've gone through at length for this property with other applications, a lot of those violations were in other parts of the property and they weren't out here. In the immediate vicinity of where this cul-de-sac is going to be established. So that is the that is what the permit is. That was what we were requesting an extension, and that's why the work wasn't finished, because after the property was transferred, they had a pre-construction meeting to start doing it, but then we were dealing with bigger issues at play. So that's a summary of what this approval was and why we're requesting an extension.
Okay. Does, Denise, is that how the town sees it as well?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, what Kevin described about the bond situation and everything else that, and the time frame, is that how the
I
town looks at it as well?
don't know. I really can't answer you on the bonds. That's beyond my
Okay.
expertise, I guess you'd say.
All right, what are any other, I mean, this was before my time, so any of the other commissioners that were
Mine too,
here? Yeah, exactly. Anybody want to have a discussion or ask any questions about this extension request?
Yeah, how much of this application has to do with development?
This was not,
I was on the commission, but it was a long time ago. I really don't remember.
this
Good,
was,
like, go ahead.
this was just the re-subdivision to establish the new property lines and the new limits of the town roadway, and then to establish this drainage basin. And then as part of it, if you may remember, we were doing additional wetland plantings and enhancements along the uplands. But that was it. There was no other development related to this application. It was just the re-subdivision. And one of the other challenges was, as part of this approval, the re-subdivision approval, we permitted the installation of utilities through this driveway for future development. And then when we were trying to put in those utilities, utility providers said, until there's a development here, we won't install those utilities. So it was all kind of tied. It all ended up becoming the implementation of these improvements became tied to a potential future development. But, you know, primarily this was for the establishment of a new right-of-way in the limits of the town public roadway.
When you first
Okay.
introduced the application, you mentioned that this was a response to violations. Where were the violations that you are responding to?
It was a notice. It was a response to notice of potential violation. And if you remember, that was something that the last application, there was a whole assessment done in 2014 about the limits, things like that. This subdivision was the first step in curing all of that. And this went through the process and was approved. And then there, you know, and then now we're here. So this was the first step in dealing with that.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioner Spence?
I'm having trouble because I don't seem to remember a lot of that being that way, but I don't know what I do remember. Which is about as clear as mud, I understand. So
I'm happy
if
to
I'm
try to
hearing
fill
you
in whatever gaps exist.
if I'm hearing you right, you basically were you were going to create this road or just put in utilities for the road and put in remediation plantings?
Correct. At the time of the application, this map shows how the right-of-way for Cambridge Drive existed. It extended all the way into the property like this, and then that was the limit of the town right-of-way. As part of this re-subdivision, we pulled this limit out of the property and established the limit of the town right-of-way to be this cul-de-sac here. And then with that, we established the drainage associated with it. So we got approved the construction of the cul-de-sac, the construction of a detention basin to accommodate the municipal drainage associated with that cul-de-sac, and we established the extension of a driveway in this corridor through here to basically establish all the limits of any work in close proximity to the wetlands up to this point, including the installation of underground utilities to service future development. And as part of this activity and as part of this work, we proposed and were approved to install all of the plants surrounding the detention basin and also additional wetland enhancement and upland plantings further into the property. So this inset is essentially, you can see here, it's right up here. It's a little bit further into the property. Let me show you on a broader map. Those additional wetland plantings and enhancements were approved to go right in here.
So how much of that was actually done in
There
the
was-
5 years that you've had the permit?
So the current owner has only owned the property
No,
since
no.
the previous owner. The previous owner had a pre-construction meeting and did some clearing, but didn't do much.
Was there anything else? I don't know why I only remember the re-subdivision. Was there more to this re-subdivision, or is just this particular parcel that you're talking about?
It's just this. It was just the re-subdivision, Section 4 re-subdivision for 64 Cambridge Drive. And these plans up here on the screen are the ones that were approved and stamped and signed by both Wetlands and Planning and Zoning. This is the extent of the overall scope of work associated with this permit.
I have to ask what the purpose is for keeping it open then, if it's not really part of your general overall future plan, or is it?
Well, we still want to, yeah, we still want to, for the town's benefit, the town needs an end of Cambridge Drive. And the town generally wants to limit their public roadway network. So we wanted to create the cul-de-sac in front of Axle Plastics and establish the detention basin associated with it, and then, you know, allow for that continued driveway into the property. And again, this is a duly approved subdivision with a Mylar on the land records and bonds posted for the full installation of all public improvements. And all of this work is essentially a public improvement because it establishes the limit of the town right of way.
But it's not going to stay that way. It's going to become part of a driveway eventually.
This limit here is the end of the town right of way. And this drainage installation is in the drainage easement to the town of Monroe. So all of this is public improvement. There's a driveway that extends as well, and the work associated with that driveway was approved as part of this re-subdivision. So establishing, and you may not recall, but the driveway width, the Cape Cod curbing, how, you know, that drainage worked, that was all done as part of this re-subdivision. Again, this was the first step in at the time was going to be a series of steps, and then everything occurred and the property's since changed hands, and the current property owner is simply trying to maintain this so he can continue to do this work. Again, there's bonds posted on the planning and zoning side. If a subdivision is approved and a Mylar is filed, bond is posted to cover that public improvement. So if for whatever reason they didn't want to extend this, the town would have an obligation to call that bond and do this work. We don't want to, you know, the town isn't in a position to want to do that. We don't want them to do that. We want to maintain this permit so we can finish this work. The current owner.
Okay,
Question.
I don't have
Is that
any
it?
more.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Clark.
So if we grant the extension, how many more years does this go out to? Like, I mean, we're at the limit of their extension right now, their original permit, correct? Because of COVID, the permit is basically almost lapsed, but it can't lapse because of COVID. So we have to either grant it or not grant it. So I mean, what I'm saying is we gotta do it now. We can't, like, you know, wait on this.
Yeah, Blake, is that all, Commissioner Gingras?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to make sure.
I think it's 5 years. Isn't it, would it be 5 years? Another 5-year extension?
But I mean, the 5 years is up. We have to get it done.
Yeah, but the first, you get 2 extensions, I believe, unless I'm wrong.
You have 5 years for your permit and you get 1 5-year extension. That meaning that the commission can extend up until 5 years, but they don't have to extend the full 5 years. You can,
Oh.
decide get it done in a year or give it a year or whatever. It's the commission's choice or decision, I should say.
What, okay. Kevin, what's the intention for completing the project, the intended time to complete the project?
Well, if the last application was approved, it'd be underway right now. The applicant's been trying to work with the town and stop and cease activities on the site because we were trying to work through a bigger picture. And we're still trying to do that. So, the intent is to extend this permit, and we've already talked to the commission. We were hoping to continue that conversation this evening about a new application to do the rest of the restoration, and then this work would all happen at the same time.
Well, in this particular matter, you're asking for an extension. How much of an extension are you asking for?
In accordance with state statutes, we did request a 5-year extension.
Okay, so the request is for a 5-year extension. Does any of the commissioners have a question for Kevin Soley on this extension request? Commissioner Hall, go ahead.
Yes. I know Kevin, you are working towards a new application and trying to put together the larger picture plan here. And I'd like to understand how this fits into that plan, because my perception would be that the new plan would either incorporate all of this or supersede this and become unnecessary. But maybe you could explain that.
What this did, this approval dealt with the entrance. So this established what the intent was to create the end of Cambridge Drive, the drainage around it, and the driveway into the property. Our application, our last application, and any future applications is only going to build upon this. So we're only going to pick up from this point inward to the property, and this will always be the same. All the work associated in this part of the site is the same. This was the first step, and then everything else that happens is beyond this limit.
Beyond that. Okay. That actually answered my question. I'm good.
The Kevin, where's the inlet to the detention basin?
It's all the cul-de-sac was designed to sheet flow.
Sheet flow, okay.
Into this area. So there's a stone filter strip. This drains this way, and then that sheets into here. And then there was, since we were putting in Cape Cod curbing along this edge, this is pitched to the west. So drainage just drains along here, and there's a paved leak off which goes into this basin here.
All right.
It's fine.
All right. So you're requesting a 5-year extension, and what if we get? And what about?
Your glass is right there.
Yeah, some of my
Hold on.
Yes, give me a little bit.
Little feedback from Commissioner Gingrich. So you're asking for a 5-year extension. Now, if you get, what about a time limit upon the completed approvals for the what am I trying to say? For what you're trying to get done at 64 Cambridge? Meaning, like, if you get your approvals to restore 64 Cambridge, you don't, and let's say you get it next, at the end of this year, sometime this year, that, this will actually start to happen instead of waiting till the last 3 months of the 5-year extension. You know what I mean?
We want to do this as fast as possible. As we talked about for 9 months, we want to get water into that wetland, that vernal pool, as soon as possible. We were hoping we were doing that now. We wanted to get that water, the deepest part of the hole filled in. We were hoping to be
Yeah.
doing that now. And we want to get this going as soon as we possibly can. And I hope it doesn't take, another 9 months to get through a process. We were hoping to, again, continue the dialogue tonight and get an application in and be done with this in the Planning and Zoning Commission, by July or August. We don't want this to be another protracted discussion.
Of course, but my question is, because you're asking for a 5-year extension, and I understand, your clients, the team, your groups, to not want to do this until they got the whole thing approved so they can move forward like, normal situation. So if they get all the other approvals, whether it's a month, 2 months, 3 months, how much time would they be able to put on for completion? I'm sorry, I said that wrong. So once he gets all his approvals, you got all your approvals, they can start doing all their stuff they need to do. This particular project, what would be the time frame to complete it from there? If I know I'm not saying that the best possible way.
I think I understand. So we requested a 5-year extension. You're asking how long do we think we'd actually need to do this work instead of a full
Yes.
5 years?
Yeah, after you got all the, stuff that you're looking at, from us, P&Z, once you have all the other permits in place, approvals, what's the time frame to complete this particular project?
This would be one of the first things done. So this would probably be a 6-month, 6-month effort after we commenced activity on the site.
Okay, so
Excuse me, Kevin, it's and Commissioner, it's Arnold Karp. The truth of the matter is this work would be finished at this point, but we had 2 issues. First of all, the utility company will not bring in the utilities to this site unless there is a building.
Mhm.
That's the first issue. The second issue is there is currently a cease and desist. We don't believe it's on this, but I've been told not to do anything on the property. So when you say, how long will this take? Our effort was to get this done last fall, but the town thought it was more important to put a cease and desist on us. So that's the reason for part of this holdup. But I would be loath at this point not to ask for the full 5-year portion, because I don't know how long it's going to take to get the rest of the approvals.
Mhm.
And to do this one piece as a standalone is sort of foolish on my part.
Yep.
I would have to mobilize. So we'd like to get the whole thing moving, but until I can figure out a building and utilities, it's sort of foolish to put in all of this work and then dig it up to put the utilities in. So I need a little bit of joint effort, and you guys have heard this speech before, to get this moving. We're still paying on the bond. The bonds are in our name, and we acquired this a year and a half ago, and the town over the last year saw it fit to allow us to do nothing.
Okay, so I'm trying to come up with a solution for this, and obviously you guys are asking for the 5-year extension. So
As would be normal course, Commissioner Romano.
yes, but we don't have to give you. It's not like an automatic renewal. So I'm trying to come up with something that I think everybody would agree to. And would it be 5-year extension, and then within, I don't think it would say 9 months from the time you get the permit for your building? I'm just throwing that out there. It's not my decision. I'm just throwing out an idea. Commissioner Gingrich?
Yeah, you can't do that. It's already been approved once. You can only do either say you give them a 5-year, 3-year, 2-year, but you can't add that on because it's already an approved permit. All he's asking for is an extension, which we can grant because it was written in the paperwork there. You can't add anything else on saying that he has to have it finished within 9 months. It's either we give him a time period, just do the extension.
Can I remind the commission that the request for this extension was because they were asking regarding the governor's executive orders, and that really this already expired?
That's why we got to get this done and give him,
I understand that, but I'm just saying that was the whole purpose. The question of expiration was under scrutiny at the last meeting, because you were looking for clarification as to whether this fell under the executive order from the governor's office regarding existing permits. And I believe that Barbara, attorney,
Ellenberg.
thank you, Schellenberg, had spoken with you all about that. So that's really, I think, what you're trying to determine when you're deciding whether or not to grant this extension is whether this was already expired. And
Okay.
Kevin was requesting this under the governor's executive order. Do you
As
remember
is
that? You guys all have the letter.
Mr. Romano, if I could be heard for just a minute.
Well,
Yeah, this is
sure,
Attorney
Attorney Finn.
Finn representing the applicant. Just 2 quick points. Commissioner Gingras, I think, has it absolutely right. This is just a request for an extension, and you cannot legally put in other conditions on the permit that were not there originally. So I think Commissioner Gingras has that exactly right.
Sure.
With regard to the governor's executive order, that extended the time of these permits and therefore extended the expiration date. And my recollection, and I have had conversations with Attorney Schellenberg, the real issue that came up the last time, as I understand it, was Attorney Schellenberg's correct point that you cannot extend a permit for which there are violations of the permit that is sought to be extended. And so I think Kevin has established fairly clearly tonight that there are no violations of the permit that we seek to extend. There may be violations that even predated the permit that we seek to extend, but those are not violations of the permit that for this particular project. And I would respectfully ask the commission to treat this, therefore, like any other motion for an extension or request for an extension under your regulations. And granted, I have not appeared before your commission before, but I have to tell you, these things are routinely granted. And I find it troubling that having gotten all the facts out, and I heard Commissioner Spence indicate that her recollection may not square, but Kevin has represented those are the facts, and Commissioner Spence certainly has had time to go back and do her research, because this is the second time this has appeared on your agenda. That there's really, I think we're going way overboard here. And so I appreciate the time to address you. If you have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to address them.
All right, thank you, Attorney. The clarification on the issue from the last meeting is actually what we should have probably heard from the beginning. And I think it all does now make sense to me, hopefully everybody else. It's just someone make a motion, let's be done with it.
I make a motion that we grant the 5-year extension to this permit so they can finish this cul-de-sac.
We have a motion to extend the permit for 5 years. Any second?
I second.
Second, Commissioner Massaraco. Any discussion or comment?
Discussion?
Sure.
Just, I think 5 years is too long for this, given that there is the other application that we're expecting. I would say a 2-year extension I would support.
I was going to say exactly the same thing as BJ just did. I think they can always come back for another extension. We have up to 5 years. It doesn't say how many times we can do it. The maximum amount is 5 years total. So we could do it 2-2-1. We could do it, maybe we won't need it. I agree with BJ. I would like to see it kept at 2 years.
Okay.
And I'd
so
like
now
to amend my motion to make it a 2-year extension.
Okay, so you have a motion from Commissioner Gingras for a 2-year extension. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that's 4 in favor. Any opposed? One opposition. Any abstentions? No, so that's all of us. All right, so the motion passes to get a 2-year extension, and it's not it's not, as mentioned earlier, it could be extended again.
We appreciate that.
Commissioner,
Sure.
it's Arnold Karp again. And I understand everybody's concern about putting me on a short rope of 2 years. Let's say the other project gets delayed because it's appealed. So I should come back to this commission on work that's been approved under another owner. Again, why can't I get the same rights that everybody else who appears in front of this commission gets each and every time? Is the concern that the work won't get done? The bond is posted. Actually, if you don't approve it, the town can spend their money on my bond to get this done. The bond doesn't disappear, and putting me on a short leash only means that when we come back for our other applications, and if anybody ties us up, I then have to go through this again. These meetings cost us a lot of time, effort, and money, and I can't understand why there seems to be a second requirement for this piece of property, as I've sat in for 2 years worth of hearings, that nobody else in town seems to have to do.
Mr.
Can you
Karp,
explain that to me?
well, I certainly can't, because that's, nothing that I have the business of talking to you about. But what I can tell you is that, we followed the rules of the meeting. Someone made a motion, people discussed it, we voted on it. You got a 2-year extension. You can come back. The next time would be a 5-minute operation, because we're all up to speed. The whole part where, we're concerned about the expiration, not an issue anymore. And, hopefully it doesn't, this is done in a year. That's what I'd like to see personally. But, it's not, we're just trying to do what we can. And this is what we were dealt with. And, this is what we got. But this really not putting you on a short leash. You have 5 years. You really have 5 years if you come back.
No,
Right now we have.
yes, but I would have to come back in 2. If I got tied up on the rest of the approvals or somebody appeals it, I then have to come back to you guys on another meeting, okay, where it will be the same discussion. I just can't for the life of me understand why everything that we seem to do takes twice the effort and 3 times the amount of time, okay? It is in my best interest to turn this piece of property into a productive tax roll, okay? I'd like to do it as quickly as possible. So can somebody explain to me, is this under my cease and desist or not under the cease and desist? I assume it's not. I have a cease and desist from the town. So am I allowed to start this tomorrow morning? Well, but that's my point. If I spend 6 months figuring that out, that gives me only a year and a half. You guys have passed it. I just would like a level playing field going forward, because, we've spent a lot of time, a tremendous amount of money, and have made no progress in over a year and a half. Okay? And I understand, the issue, but this is a perfect example of something that could have been dealt with. Either the permit's in, I disagree with staff's saying that the permit is not in effect. Yes, the governor extended all permits, all wetlands, all building, all permits. So it hasn't expired. This is still in effect, but there could be a cease and desist on it, which we can't seem to answer either. So let's move on to the other parts, because
this commission
we were on the.
Mr. Karp, this commission doesn't give out or vote on cease and desist, as far as I know. So we're not discussing anything that's going to be productive.
The cease and desist, the cease and desist is from P&Z, not us.
So let's work on things that are relevant to wetlands tonight, and let's keep moving forward.
Which I agree with 100%. We seem to have glanced over the notice of violation portion, because we had some notes that we put together and asked last the meeting 2 weeks ago, to review with the commission to see if some of our comments agreed with some of your thoughts.
All right, let's take a break here. Let me see what where we are on the agenda, and then We don't have.
We don't have
this-
anything else. We don't, that's not on
we're
the
done.
agenda.
So a discussion about 64 and 4
It's
is
not on the
not,
agenda.
but we're still, are we still doing that? Because Kevin brought it up previously. Donna?
And I guess
They have to,
maybe maybe
Let's ask that, Kevin, let's clarify with staff. And then you can comment.
I'm sorry, the question again is,
So earlier in Kevin's presentation, he had said that they were hoping to do further discussion about 64 Cambridge and 4 Independence. That's not on our agenda, like it was last time.
no, that was a separate item on the agenda last month.
Okay, so it's
And-
not here.
and they did- That was not, I do not recall it being requested to be carried on to this month. I recall them saying, okay, thank you, it was a productive discussion, and then they were going to come back for the bond release discussion.
Right, I thought that Kevin said something about coming to discuss stuff with staff. Not that that's necessarily the right way, but
Yeah, so I guess, we had great discussion at the last hearing. I appreciate the commission time and insight. And I think as we went through that discussion, first we were talking about the violation, and then Commissioner Hall said it's less about that, it's more about the denial. And then we had good discussion. I was, and this might be, I may have to take responsibility. I didn't send another letter in saying I wanted to continue the conversation. I thought that I had been clear that we wanted to continue the conversation at this meeting, and frankly, I thought that notice of violation would likely just stay on the agenda because it's still an open thing that we've come to you. We're trying to work through it. We want to continue to work through it. So if I have to write a letter each meeting saying we want to continue this dialogue, I'll do that. But I know the commission doesn't have much on the agenda tonight. If you want to call it quits early, we understand, but we definitely want to. We don't want to lose time. We don't want it to be several meetings or several months before we have enough direction to come in before you with the new application. Based on the conversations at the last meeting, we have a number of ideas that we wanted to talk through with you tonight to say, based on your feedback, this is how we think we'd be crafting a new application. And we think it touches on a number of the elements that we discussed. We were hoping to do that tonight. I'm remiss I didn't send in a formal letter requesting that, but
Kevin,
we'd like to, but we understand.
the first concern I would have is be procedurally. Whether, this is, I don't know again, I'm not good with words tonight, but if this flies like procedurally, if we're not doing the proper thing as far as running a meeting, I don't know how to answer that question. That would be, I don't know. Is Commissioner Gingrich trying to chime in?
The only place that would fall into would be under general discussion other, if we talked about anything else. Because right now you're going into, you've got to finish F, G, and H before we can go into anything else. Because all
So
this was a time extension, not a general discussion on how to do the next application.
I understand this is not part of the same time extension. I'm just trying to figure out if this fits in the agenda, if we can fit in the agenda without causing any problems. And like you said, maybe under, item I, but I'm not sure.
Lois, would you think that'd be under I as other?
I mean, realistically, if it wasn't on the agenda, there would have been the beginning of the meeting would have been the time, because they could discuss anything at that point. But we kind of we did that, and we actually stuck that to Attorney Green once in the very beginning of this thing. So I don't know. That makes it's a tough. We got kind of have a precedent with that.
Well, I just reviewed the minutes that we haven't approved yet, but I just ran through them. And it was said in the minutes that, where was it? I just read through it. That Mr. Soley was going to return. Oh, heck, where is it? Oh, they would put together some ideas and return to the commission to discuss. Then they would submit a formal application. So there was nothing concrete that said it was going to continue to this particular meeting. And if we're going to add anything to an agenda, I believe it has to be done in the beginning of the meeting, not in the middle of the meeting. So logistically, I'm not sure.
I know it's a tough one. I mean, I want to talk about it, but we have to be fair and we have to do the right thing. Because like I said, we shut down somebody that made the same mistake in the very beginning in last spring, in the beginning of the 64 Cambridge. We did it to Attorney Green.
Actually, if I may, Commissioner Romano, this is Attorney
Sure.
Finnegan. My recollection is that that was because that was a discussion and Attorney Green was representing an intervener, and there was an issue about whether intervention could be done procedurally when it's just a discussion rather than a hearing. And so an Attorney Schellenberger was of the opinion that no, in connection with a discussion, an intervener cannot be heard. With regard to,
Wait, hold on.
am I wrong about that?
Yeah.
That's my recollection.
My recollection was that we had, the response to him was, if you had spoken at the beginning of the meeting in the general participation part, we would have been able to listen to you and you could speak about anything at that point. That's why when he wanted to speak about something, it wasn't that he couldn't talk about it, as far as I recall. It's just that he wasn't on the agenda and he could have picked public participation at the beginning of the meeting, and he could have addressed us then, the same exact, whatever he wanted to discuss. But he wasn't on the agenda. He didn't have a queue to speak to us. So that's where I'm kind of,
Look, I hear it. It's Attorney Finnegan, and I think there's no reason for us to debate this. I respectfully disagree, but you know what? You've given us time tonight. I think rather than push against the tide, I think we'll just we'll not go forward tonight. We will not ask you to consider allowing us to go forward, and we will try to make sure we get on the agenda for the next meeting so we can move forward with what everybody wants us to move forward with, and that is an application to remediate and restore the property. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. It is unfortunate. I wish someone could say, hey, this will never be a problem. Go ahead, go for it. But unless someone could advise us that having this discussion tonight, wouldn't break any rules, but we don't have that, unfortunately. But thank you. And
Thank you.
we look forward to the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so we're on to F, deliberation session, which we have nothing. We're on to G, IWC agent activity reports, agent approvals none, permitted uses as of right. We have IPU-2018-01, Department of Public Works, road repair, replacement, general maintenance. And then you said there's another one, Denise?
Yep, IPU 2021-02, 30 Riding Ridge Road, the removal of 5 dead and diseased trees.
All right, thank you. Enforcement deliberations, we have nothing. General discussion other, we have the minutes of February 10th. And February 24th, we'll start with February 10th.
Move to approve with minor changes.
Motion to approve the minutes with changes. Have a second? Second by Commissioner Gingrich. The changes, please.
Okay, on the very last page under IWC 2020-10, in the last sentence of that paragraph, the last sentence, if piping is discovered and dealing with it could cause impact to wetlands. That's just an insertion before the word impact. And that is it.
All right. So we have a motion to accept. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, minutes are approved unanimously. Minutes of February 24th, 2021.
Okay, move to approve with changes once again.
I have a motion to approve with changes from Commissioner Spence. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hall. Changes, please.
Okay, page 3, fourth sentence down, Commissioner Gingras agreed the bullet points that refer to, instead of note, just cross that out and put refer to, violations, ... And that is it for those.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Minutes are approved unanimously. Next is Regulation Amendment Committee.
I did a little bit of sleuthing on some of the things that we talked about last time. We still need to do some work on these. Let's see if I find my papers here now. Keith, you had mentioned that perhaps the applicant can ask that it go direct to public hearing. The statutes don't allow for that.
Okay.
They say that you shall not hold a public hearing unless the commission decides X, Y, Z.
Okay,
So
that's easy.
that's number one. I'm not saying that we can't possibly have it go faster if the commission decides it's going to be a public hearing, but there's notification problems. Donna has all kinds of notice restrictions that she has to go through. There's not only newspaper notice, but there's notice that the applicant needs time to notice the neighbors and all that other thing. So that doesn't all happen instantaneously. We have to leave enough time for that to actually happen. And I don't know if Donna has anything else to add to that.
I do not right at the moment.
Okay. So as good as that sounds, I don't know that we could pull it off.
But I don't think my suggestion would change any of that, because they still have to do the notification if it's a public hearing, and if it's a regular meeting, they don't, right?
Right.
So it's still, it's almost like someone knows that they're going to definitely be a public. They've been their season. They know that this is the way it always goes. And obviously, if someone was, hoping to not have a public hearing, there's a lot more work involved, right? They would go for the hearing determination. But someone's saying, I just know it's going to be a public hearing. I'm not even betting that it'll be a regular meeting. So I just want to start the process 2 weeks or a month sooner. I'm electing to have a public hearing. I'm going to go through all the steps I need to take, but you're saying that you can't.
Right. Yeah.
We have to
It's a
determine
commission decision. It's a commission decision,
Okay.
not an applicant decision.
But it wouldn't be a shortcut to doing the notices or anything like that. It would just be saving them the step of getting the determination and then being held back 2 weeks or a month. Because
Well, except that Donna has things she has to do.
Yeah, I
Having
mean,
to
there's,
do with other notifications, newspaper notifications and that kind of thing.
I understand, but
And
you
there's
don't
no
start that. But you don't. But we don't start that until after the determination, right?
no, actually, Keith, I have to do a pending application legal notice that has to be done 15 days before any kind of public hearing can start. So like we got
Okay.
so Elise put in one today. I did a legal notice that'll be published next week. You guys will get the application on the 24th, determine what it's going to be. Then I've got to do another legal notice what the decision was, and then we go through the process. There's unfortunately a lot of statutory time frame even prior to you deciding how you want to review it.
Okay.
Yeah. I would love it if we could just move it along.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Trust me.
And other than that, that was the only real statutory stuff I could find. But some of these other things that we discussed don't necessarily need to be in the regs. They're actually too restrictive if we put them in the regs, because once you put them in there, it's something we have to do. We can have a matter of our own, I'll call it policy. It's not, I mean, I don't know what else to call it. What we usually do, you know, is we try to be consistent across the board, having to do with commercial violations versus, I don't know if we can do a different NOV process with them, with commercial versus landowners. I think everybody at least needs at least one crack at rectifying before we throw in a formal notice at them.
But we've done it. We've already done it a few times this year or last year.
Yes, I think it depends on the severity of the violation also, and whether or not we think that the owner knows about it. You know, it's like.
Well, my suggestion about it was that nobody buys commercial real estate without having an attorney and learning what the do's and don'ts of their zoning are. So, and knowing that there's wetlands on the property. I mean, yeah, there could be someone that owns something from like 60, maybe Benedict's or someone like that who's had that place for like 100 years, you know, wouldn't be, you know, it's been in the family for forever. They wouldn't necessarily know, but they do, you know. So, but anybody who buys commercial property, they usually, you know, there's always a lawyer involved. There's always, you know, you're buying a business or a commercial property, all the restrictions, they should know what it is automatically. Residential, you know, not so much. It's not really required.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that I don't think it needs to be in the regulations. Because
So we could-
remediations and violations, and there's a whole section on violations, but we don't need to hone it down to the point where we're nitpicking tiny little things. That could be something we do as a commission policy.
Gotcha. It's just our thing that we do. It's not in the regulations.
As long as we're consistent across the board, that's what I think is very important, that we try to treat everybody, at least, you know, homeowners as opposed to commercial, as long as they all get treated the same.
Mm-hmm. And then what about the separation of the applications, remediation and development?
That one, I think that has to be, it has to be in the regs, and we just need to come up with wording for it. I haven't really had much time to put into it, to be honest. And it's not hard to come up with wording for this stuff. It's just a matter of doing it, and then you hand it to Barbara and say, or whoever is going to be monitoring these things, and say, is it legally correct? Then once we get all of our changes, whatever changes we're going to have, we submit them to DEP and schedule a public hearing. So, but there's not very many that we have to talk about. So, but do wording.
Okay.
Do anybody have any ideas? This is not something that has to be done by me. I mean, we can, you know, the basic, everybody should be somewhat familiar with the regulations and how they read. So, what?
Nah.
Am I the only one who knows these regulations? Actually, the best way to learn about the regulations is to actually work on them.
I'm just giving you a hard time, Lois.
So I can do it.
Okay. All right. And then we're done with that topic?
I think so.
Okay.
I am.
We have public outreach committee.
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. So while we're still in general discussion, I want to ask if anybody, because we had two kind of strange things happen tonight. First of all, we basically, in a way, got, I want to say reprimanded, but, you know,
We got schooled.
Schooled by one of the, you know, the applicants. Now, I think it was misdirected, right? It really shouldn't have been, he may have, a gripe with some stuff, but not to us volunteers that are trying to do this stuff. How else we could have handled that issue? I mean, it was a tricky one because we could have approved, if it had not expired, if they were there 4 months, or regardless of the pandemic stuff, if they had came to us before the expiry, it would have been a very easy extension.
Like others do. Like others
Yeah.
normally come to us, even if it's a week before they come, it's a clear cut thing. This was a little bit different. And I think also there's a cease and desist hanging over them, not by us. There's a violation hanging over them by us and maybe even P&Z. This one's a little bit of a unique thing.
Yeah, hey Keith, you can actually shut them down, because by point of order, that stuff that he started talking to you about, you can just basically just say, hey, it's nothing to do with us. You need to go talk to zoning, and please, we're trying to handle only the issue that deals with the wetlands in this application, which was a permit that was approved, 5 years ago. So all that other BS that he started throwing at you, just shut him down, because he doesn't have to sit there and keep talking to you about it.
Yeah.
I agree. And at some point I was there. I wasn't sure what, if he was getting to something, I wasn't even sure if, I wasn't even sure if he even had a right to speak after we voted.
No,
we have
2 other comments. They started trying to pull that other thing in, and I was like, whoa, that's procedural. You're not even in the right area to talk about that. And we didn't even have it on the agenda, so.
It's going to be interesting if they're even on the agenda for P&Z, because I know they asked for an extension of P&Z as well. But have they been discussing with P&Z about new plans and new concepts? There's 2 different things going on, and I feel like it's being married again.
Yeah, I think
there was. I got a question from when we turned down their application. We're not going to get involved with this intervener again. They're not going to come back in and start playing around, because we shut them down because there was nothing by this application or this owner showing that he did anything now, going on, that he is doing anything illegal, dangerous, whatever. Didn't Barbara say something like that? Because I'm just hoping that we're not going to suddenly see 5 people show up on this meeting and they all want to raise their hands and say they're.
We may very well, Clark, we might very well see it. I don't know. I'm not sure that that's completely.
I want to shut that down as fast as they start talking, because they wasted more time for the last 6 months, and it was driving me crazy.
Right, and a lot of these
on my face, I was angry at some of those meetings because we went an extra hour to listen to 4 guys repeat themselves with a circular argument, and they didn't show us proof. They showed us zero proof.
That was the applicant as badly as the intervener, though. They were back and forth. It was a pissing match, is what it was.
I mean, it was I've watched enough government activities when they want to fight with each other. Great, they bring somebody out and he starts talking out of a book for fun. It's filibustering the whole process, and that's what they were doing. They were filibustering this to blow this application out.
I don't think we could stop an intervener if they get their intervener status, but certainly they're not repeating or presenting any stuff that was presented last time around. They got to come up with, if they have something to say, it better be new and fresh and a new critique of the new application.
Right.
It's definitely not going to steal. First of all, I didn't learn.
Barbara said they have to show proof that there's something wrong going on, that they are doing something to endanger the wetlands, the environment, the air, whatever going on right now, and they're not. They've been the cease and desist. They've been doing nothing to that property, and they just want to fix the property.
Yeah, of course, and we have to. Now that we know, we spent a lot of time on stuff that wasn't even our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
We didn't find that out until halfway through the process. It's all very complex. This is advanced class, wetlands. We were never prepared for this. And even what happened tonight, again, it was just something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, and it's all tied back to what's going on. And I probably should have kiboshed the speech a little bit early, but you're also at this point now where we see these people like every month for the majority of our meetings, and there's probably like a little bit of a
Camaraderie.
there's like a rapport between all of us because we're trying to work together.
Codependency.
Yeah. Now the other thing I wanted to bring up was,
But before we leave this topic, Keith, can I interrupt? Actually, we should not have allowed any discussion from anybody other than us having to do with that extension. There was no place for that in the agenda. That is
What was that?
presented to us as from Denise, and we discuss it and we vote and we decide there's no other input whatsoever.
That was moved because of the last meeting. That actually was moved so that there could be
Could
discussion.
have the discussion.
Oh, was
Yeah.
there? Then I stand corrected then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Barbara had said, these should be where you could have a discussion.
Yeah, we
Okay.
didn't know what was going on. I had no idea what that permit really meant.
Yeah.
When I
And
looked it all over, I was like, oh, okay. So it's literally nothing to do with the rest of that property. It's just the street. Fixing a cul-de-sac and a drainage and making sure that it's got nice shrubs and bushes and trees around the drainage. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
That all could
that's
have
what
been
this
done
is.
4 years ago.
I mean,
You were going to say something. What?
Last time when we've realized that Kevin couldn't speak. I said what it was, and I was getting the shaking of the head no, but yet that's what I was talking about was the cul-de-sac and the, because that was what the work was.
Yeah.
Now,
It was kind of cool at the time, but sorry.
just so you know, I did recognize that Mr. Karp was raising a hand while we were in motion, and that's why I did not address him, because I felt that there was a motion there. We had to complete the motion. It got amended. At first it looked like it was going to be a 5-year, then it ended up being a 2. I didn't allow any discussion, but I did see he wanted to speak, and I think he just went a little overboard. But it's done. They got it. It's not a big deal. I mean, he could ask for that extension by himself. He doesn't have to hire Solely or anybody. He could come online, read to himself.
Just do the paperwork and showing us that he just wants to extend.
Yeah, exactly. He does not have to spend. He doesn't have his attorney present. He doesn't have his engineer present. In 2 years.
He doesn't even have to be present. He submits it.
A letter.
And, just make sure you submit it well before the time, not.
Yeah. And they could have submitted a letter he could have submitted a letter 5 months ago and saved himself a whole bunch of money, right? Before it expired. So, I mean, we're just gonna we're trying to. It's tough.
Even before COVID came, it was on the cuspice.
Yeah.
If not with us, at least with P&Z, because I remember P&Z saying it was, Yeah.
And, as someone who's developed land before, I do understand the frustration from a property owner of, being in front of commissions. The other thing was then, so obviously we made the right call about if it wasn't on the agenda and it wasn't in the beginning.
Right.
I felt like I made a call, but I wanted to know if everybody agreed that that was the right thing to do.
Well, it was like, there was something I was going to bring up to the commission, but we got too far along. So, I'll talk to you guys next month, the next meeting about it, about a site, because we were having that whole discussion about, when to say things. And it's like, well, we're kind of beyond where I could have said something about, ask the question. So
you're talking about something that you want to bring up?
Thing unrelated. I had a question I wanted to ask about another project. And I would have asked when before you went to the minutes, and for some reason
We're still in general discussion.
Discussion. We can talk as we're on the same team. Not that we're really against anybody,
had a
but
lot of other people, and I didn't want someone to say, "Well, how can she be asking something and I can't?"
Well, you're our agent.
So, but yeah, that's right. So, Wolf Park, we own the town owns Wolf Park. I was doing a field walk yesterday in Wolf Park because they're talking about trying to get the fields done, you know, going out to bid with stuff that we had approved, I guess, back in 2014, again in 2015, and again in 2019, maybe.
That was right when I came on.
Yeah, so, you know, we were kind of walking out there, and I guess there was, I'm going to call it the graveyard is what they referred to it. There's some areas that was considered the graveyard where past Park and Rec directors told them that they could throw stuff. So there were like broken bleachers and old equipment and things like that. So the town went and cleaned up past Park and Rec director. Go on, they're gone.
No, but I mean, where's this graveyard?
So the one that I saw was behind the tennis courts. There's a clear field, and then a little bit to the left of that, or down to the right, down a pathway. So we walked there, and they did a little cleanup. When I got back to the office, because it was late last night, I got back to the office. I took some photos. Some of the area that they did some of the cleaning actually turns out that it's a little bit in the wetlands, definitely in the upland review. Now, I'm fine the fact that they took out trash, but there's some areas where there's cut trees and they just piled brush. I told them not to touch it right now. Do we want to let them leave the brush in, or do we want to have them remove that as well? The brush is in the upland review.
I would leave the brush.
I would leave it alone.
That's kind of where I was going, but I said, let me just discuss it with my commission, you know, because they're like, and I'm like, I'm afraid they're going to keep cleaning and it's going to become too much.
That can be a problem.
Trucks in there. If they start driving trucks in or you know, loaders or whatever to yank out trees and shrubs and all that stuff, that's just going to ruin more.
Right, and that was my concern. I was like, well, how did they get all this stuff out? And they're like, oh, they carted it out. I'm like, I have a hard time believing that bleachers were just handpicked and carted out. But
well, you were there after they did you were there after they did it?
Yeah,
Was there residual damage? Was there rutting?
Well, there was still a lot of snow on the ground yesterday. We were walking in, big puddles of water, snow, and so I can't see all of the remnants of that. But I mean, there's some areas that I could see the ground was just really wet. I don't think it was disturbed from vehicles, because some you just didn't have the access in. But I still didn't like the fact that, to me, they were clearing a little bit more than I would think, and I don't think they realized where they were.
Okay.
So I kind of said to them that I don't want them doing anything until they talk to us first, going forward, even cleaning, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, have them come in and let's talk about it. Maybe if there's like a grand vision, maybe someone has a grand vision to clean it up and make it more park-like, and that's why they were doing it. And there's a non-invasive way to do it.
I understand why they wanted to get rid of, and that's what I refer to graveyard. I understand them wanting to get rid of broken equipment and old bleachers and whatnot, because, it is a park. And if you have, you're there with your kids and they see old bleachers, they might want to go run in there and play and get hurt. So I could understand that. I just don't want it to now where, oh, well, we cleaned here, let's continue on. Not really thinking
danger.
what they're doing.
We have had problems like that. Right? I have found, like down in Great Hollow, I found a whole bunch of stuff that they just thrown in the woods because it was in the way, I guess. But we do have, I would talk to Missy and to Russ, whoever else is involved with and just make sure that they understand that a lot of that area is wetlands and upland review and needs to have some kind of review. They don't like to think about it because it's town property. They don't think it really applies. Or at least that's been a problem in the past anyway. How these people feel, I don't know. But
and that's the other thing. If they're doing general maintenance, we could do that under the permitted use as of right. Would we make the town take out a permitted use as of right? Or would we just make sure that what they do follows our guidelines?
I would say you should be able to do it informally, as long as they talk to you. And, because they do get carried away sometimes, but if they talk to you first, but I don't want to ever have to come down on anybody for doing something.
No, neither do I. And that's why when I found out this morning, I went and I talked to Missy. So I'm having another meeting with her and some other people tomorrow about it, because she's like, oh God. And I said, just have Russ not touch it right now. just stay away from it all.
Yep, sounds good.
Denise, what were the sticks, the stuff that they were cleaning out that wasn't like trash, but the natural stuff, was it because it was piled there as part of the graveyard, like a place to bring broken branches and stuff, or were they just kind of cleaning up like natural litter?
They're cleaning it up and kind of
But-
piling.
Or was it
So like
natural?
so if a tree fell, they kind of carted the tree and cut it up and stuck it in an area.
In that area? So they were trying to take out stuff that was introduced, not natural trees that fell and branches out of trees in the
Some might have
vicinity.
been natural. Some might have been natural trees. Yes.
But a lot of it was stuff carted there because it was the disposal site.
I believe it's more because it was disposal, but you know, some of it looked like freshly cut trees that might have been here. We're cleaning up here. Let's take this down and let's pile it over here.
Yeah.
So I just
All
don't
right,
want.
so my what I'm getting at is that if they had went and put debris in the wetlands, not just, you know, man-made garbage, but natural garbage, I mean, the right thing would be to do to take it out of there, but obviously in a fashion that doesn't cause, who's that? Caller 2, who are you?
You need to mute.
Yeah, caller 2, we're getting feedback.
So that's what my thought was. If they had used it as, if they were actually loading up and doing a violation by putting the debris in there,
Yeah, no, I think
violating it.
it was being consolidated as they were cleaning up. They were moving things around. So now there's, you know, they have a stone wall in one area and there's actually a decent pile of brush. And, you know, I was like, I prefer to have it left because to me, it's a natural habitat.
Yeah,
Exactly. I'm with you.
Where is it? It's behind the tennis court, you said?
So if you go behind the tennis courts, it's to the left behind the tennis courts. There's like an open area. That's one of the fields that they're looking at maybe doing something. It's to the left of the real open area. And it starts to get kind of wet over there.
But how far from the tennis courts is it? If you're, you know,
I have
200
to
feet?
leave the meeting.
What?
Huh?
Guys, I gotta get going. There's something.
Oh, okay.
See you
All right.
guys.
All right, Commissioner Gingrich is leaving the meeting at 8:22 p.m.
Good night, Clark.
Good night.
Hi.
Thank you.
If you're standing at the far end of the tennis court,
Yeah.
it's in line with the far end of the tennis court. The line of the tennis court furthest away from the playground.
Yes, I understand that part. Yeah. But about how far from the tennis court? Like, is it 100 feet, 200 feet, 1,000 feet? How far,
Within
you know?
within 100 feet. I mean, you
Okay,
could
so it's
start
relatively
seeing-
close. Because I know there's some other clearing areas. I never
Oh yeah,
noticed
there's
that.
other clearing areas that I'm aware of, but this is a little different. This is,
Yeah.
you know, not where they plan to put the fields. This was
Yeah.
other areas.
There's parts in there where there's old metal stuff, like,
Oh, actually,
Right.
one area where they said they cleaned, I happened to look and I could see a nice big blue container that they didn't get out. That's in the
Yeah.
wetlands. So, you know.
there's car parts all throughout. I've seen.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, well, is that it for everybody?
A trail, what is it? A hitch buried in his wetlands. He bought a house and he was moving some, you know, he had all these leaves that the previous homeowner had left. And he said, I'm trying to get these leaves to get my wetlands. And he says, there's a trailer underneath here. It had sunk in the wetlands.
Good one.
And I'm like, okay, what do you know, I was like, do you have a problem with it staying in your wetlands or are you thinking of taking it out? He's like, I have no money. I'm just going to leave it right now. I'm like,
Go.
okay.
Better off.
Okay, are we done?
All right, I think we're done. So, I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting.
Yep.
Where's
Motion
Clark?
for Commissioner Spence to close the meeting. A second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hall, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned at 8:24 p.m.